Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.
But Don Nealon's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread. As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sounds of Golden Blue football. Here is Harris in trouble. Stiff arms. The would-be tackler comes down over the 25 to 20. Goes around about it to 15 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
Takes the Slater one-on-one with the defender. Look at Pat White.
West Virginia football. You know what that's about. They don't know what it's about. West Virginia football. Put on our table. Take the shoes up on time. No more hair in the helmet.
Let them know. Leave no doubt tonight. Leave no doubt tonight. No doubt. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
And now, the show brought to you by Mountaineer fans, for Mountaineer fans, the Country Roads Webcast.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into Season 5, Episode 133 of the CRW Podcast, our Kansas Review and Reactions episode. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Cruz. A little bit more somber edition this time, I guess you could say, but I got Bradley here with me. What's going on, Brad?
Not much, man. Just, been thinking a lot about our football team today and about how I feel. Still not great, but I guess that's what we're here to talk about.
Let's say it's a real time to think about the state of the program. It's that time for sure. If you called our post-game live stream, which of course streamed live here on YouTube if you're watching the video version of this podcast, and on the Voice of College Football YouTube and the West Virginia Voice of College Football YouTube page, you definitely probably saw we were ranting and raving, as I think a lot of Mountaineer Nation was, following that episode. But we'll be there to discuss each game the rest of the way out for the Mountaineers here in 2022 season. So subscribe to us here on our YouTube or on the Voice of College Football YouTube and the West Virginia Voice of College football page as well, in order to catch our post-game immediate reactions this season. And then, of course, we'll be back here on the podcast side of things here on, the video version on YouTube and Facebook, and then the audio version here on all podcast platforms to talk about it still yet in our review and reaction episodes. If you can't catch the live streams immediately following the game, plenty of ways to hear our thoughts on the Mountaineers this season. And as I said, in this one, a little bit more somber, as the Mountaineers have unfortunately dropped to 0-2 for the first time since 1979, after they fall to the Kansas Jayhawks 55-42 in overtime in the home opener and conference opener of the 2022 football season. Bradley, we've had a little bit over 24 hours now to kind of let it process, let it marinate. What are your opening thoughts following the loss, today as we sit here and record this episode?
Yeah, and I think that I still have a lot of the same emotions, and that seems to be pretty consistent throughout Mountaineer Nation. It feels like what I've seen on Twitter today, just like people talking about it, is everybody's still really upset, with losing to Kansas. It doesn't feel good. And, I stand by my statement of stepping off the climb. I've been a huge Neil Brown fan. Still like the guy personally. I think that he's a wonderful person. But just when it comes to running our football program, he just doesn't seem to have what it takes, honestly, to win these big games and to really send these, send this program in the right direction. Going into it, I really thought Neil Brown had the potential, to take us to new heights. And it seems like we've kind of reached some of our lowest lows at this moment. And, I haven't felt this bad since the 2013 season, which was also when we last lost to Kansas, but where it just seemed like we had a team that couldn't do anything. And, it's frustrating and it's really tough. And, I will say I tweeted this out on Twitter today, and I'll stand by it 100%. I don't agree with people hurling insults at Neil Brown. I don't agree with people. You can be frustrated. You can be mad with him. but sitting in there and saying he's a horrible person and how could he ever do this to us? The guy didn't do it intentionally. Neil Brown came in here with all the expectations of being able to win with this program and, really be able to compete at this level. And, I thought he was doing a good job at it. There's just something, and I think that we can all agree that it's his conservative play calling. It's him being scared to really let loose and embrace West Virginia football, Power 5 football, and the brand that we've built here of just like excitingness, going for it, big balls to the walls. And he didn't get it done. And I don't think that that's, people act like he intentionally did that, and that's absolutely not true. And so I don't get people insulting the man. I get it. He didn't work out great. But to sit there and be a big baby about it and act like a child and, kick your feet and scream and whine and say, how dare he waste 4 years of our life? He didn't intend to do that. And I won't stand by that. That's absolutely ridiculous. When you're looking for a new head coach, which at this moment feels like that's the direction we're trending in, what head coach is going to want to walk into that? You know what I mean? And so we got to be better as a fan base. We can't sit here and act like our program's worth something great when we treat people like trash. And I mean, that goes towards people acting that way towards the players, acting that way towards the coaches. There's no couth to it, and we can be better than that.
Yeah, well said. It's a fine line between critiquing a coach and what he's done or hasn't done, and a personal attack on said coach. Let's not confuse the two. As Mountaineer fans, we can be critical and of the coaching job and stuff, but let's not confuse that with a personal attack on, people in general. So keep that in mind is a good point. But I do agree with everything you said, and I kind of echoed that as well. Just extremely disappointed. Rode the Neil Brown train, probably more than anyone. Adamant, Neil Brown apologist for 3+ years, and that's what I put on Twitter earlier. It kind of stinks because it seems like over the last 24 hours feels like I've been eating a lot of crow. But I said I'm not, too afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And unfortunately, it seems like this is one that not only was I wrong about, but a lot of people may have been wrong about this home run can't miss hire of Neil Brown. Up to this point, just unacceptable results. Done everything right, but win football games. Neil Brown has, but ultimately that's the only thing that matters, right? So we've gauged our reaction a little bit. Like I said, our instant reaction on the post-game stream, and then here diving into it a little bit further. And we're going to continue to get into it a little bit, but wanted to do something a little bit different for these reviews and reactions, and that's just kind of get the pulse of Mountaineer Nation a little bit as well. So I put out a tweet on our Twitter page this morning, which if you're not following, you see on the video side, it's there on the screen. But if you're listening on the audio side, it's at WVU Country Roads. But I just kind of wanted to see how Mountaineer Nation was taking things and how they were feeling. I didn't want to put it out immediately yesterday, following the game. Wanted to give people, some time to sit on it and see how everyone's feelings were still sitting, and, kind of gauge that in comparison to ours and see kind of what the fan base was feeling about this whole thing. So let's look here at some responses to our tweet, and we'll go read through them. And some of them have some questions in there, Brad, and we can answer the questions as they pop up. But here's the tweet. If you're watching on the video side, of course, you can follow along here. But for those listening on the audio side, to the audio version here of Season 5, Episode 133, on our Twitter, I said, Mountaineer Nation, it's the morning after. Having slept on it now, how are you feeling about WVU football? Reply with your thoughts, feelings, or concerns, and we'll feature some on a review and reactions episode that we'll be recording later today, which we are now recording. And I'm going to go through and check out some of these reactions from Mountaineer Nation. We got Tom here. Tom says, frustrating to watch the defense so undisciplined and unprepared with an offense that could score at will. Eddie Young here says, I love the Mountaineers. Man, we were not prepared to play. I think we have talent. It's the coaching. NB needs some changes. I want him to succeed. I like the guy, but we're losing games we should win. Going to be a long season unless this gets fixed. Now,
yeah. Can we talk about those real quick?
Sandlot Love, another great follower of us. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Chime in if anything. You stop me along the way and chime in on anything you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that those two comments, especially right off the bat, kind of highlight the big issue with Neil Brown. And you had mentioned the other day that he's won every conference, every interview that he's been in, right? And he does a good job of doing that and getting people to believe and buy in. And I think that when I've looked at this team, and something that like one of the most consistent things I've seen out of Neil Brown is the fact that it does not seem that he has had a team prepared for every game throughout the season. And, I think that that's one of those things that's just like really glaring at me now going forward. And as a big reason, losing to Kansas isn't great, but it's not necessarily losing to Kansas. It's how we lost to Kansas. It's that undisciplined football play. And, going into the season on our preseason shows, like we had brought up the fact that, this team needed to be disciplined. They needed to be ready to play. And, we had to see them clean up those mistakes because you can forgive the first few years. But just seeing it still into year 4, just like the complete undiscipline, is something that Tom, Eddie Young, you and myself and every other Joe Blow and a Golden Blue have seen, And so when we're going through these, like if I'm looking at things that just, stand out to me, poor defensive play, it happens. Sometimes your defense just has an off day. But having 12 false starts in your first 2 games as your offensive line, undisciplined. Not being able to play assignment football, undisciplined, And it's just one of those things, it's like that's something that you can really chalk up to coaching. Yeah. And it's almost like, Neil Brown has said in his postgame conferences, which, hindsight, looking at it, how many times have you heard Neil Brown say those guys were just doing stuff that we didn't coach them to do?
Yeah, and I don't get that. I just don't understand that. How does that keep happening? That's an issue in and of itself.
He said it in several interviews. He has said, our linebackers weren't playing the way that we taught them to play. Our quarterbacks weren't playing the way that we taught them to play, and our linemen weren't playing the way we taught them to play, and our quarterbacks not playing the way we taught them to play. And we've heard that for years. And so it's just one of those things. It's like you want to look past it because of youth and inexperience, but at this point, it has to be coaching. Has to be.
Got to. What else could it be? I completely agree with you. At this point where we're at, like we've said, going into the season, leading all up, this was the show me year, and 2 games in, and we've been shown, and not the way that we thought we would, and it's going in the opposite direction. And when you lose to Kansas at home, it's just not good. First home night game in 4 years. This I said on our post game. They brought this up, and I still stand by it. Neil Brown complains about not having a home night game in 4 years, and this is why. He doesn't have one because he can't win. You got to have the wins, and the one time you do get one, this is what happens. But anyway,
and that's like another unprepared thing. Sorry, another unprepared thing that you can look at though is like in his interviews, because this is stuff that's like jumped out to me since. How many times in his interview, Kansas even themselves, as he said this in Kansas and against Pitt, that they just gave us some stuff that we had not seen before. They just hit us with some things we weren't expecting, and that we just like weren't prepared for. And it's just like I forgave that. I overlooked it every single time. Yeah, it's like I overlooked it every single time when I'm like apologizing for Neil Brown. That that last game, like I said, just really pulled me off the Neil Brown train, and like doing that has really taken the Neil Brown glasses off. And it's like you look at that, and it's like it was screaming at me the whole time.
Yeah, and I know one of the things I harped on was his decision to, kick the field goal when we were down 11 to make it an 8-point game to where you could only tie at best. And whatever, maybe I shouldn't have harped on that decision so much because it's not, as game changing or whatever as I, thought it was in the moment. But I think to me, the reason that I harped on it and why it stuck out to me is because it just showed me, everything about Neil Brown that everyone has been trying to say that I kind of been in denial about. It was almost what opened my eyes to it. Was just in that moment, it just all hit me that decision to me was just like a microcosm of the entire Neil Brown era of, being conservative, taking the easy choice, and just not having what it takes, I guess, for lack of a better term, to be able to win football games here.
Yeah,
And
and
I don't know.
you brought up that
was
field goal
just it for
kick,
me.
and this is something we didn't talk about, but he chose to go for a field goal. And then what happened? Our field goal team wasn't ready. We took a 5-yard
that's
delayed game penalty.
exactly.
Our field
I'm
goal
glad you
unit is
brought
just
that
not
up.
conscious. Our field goal unit is just not conscious of what the game is going on. And we decided to go for a field goal, and now we're taking in a delayed game. You're unprepared. You're not ready.
Yeah.
Your team's undisciplined.
100% on coaching. I'm glad you brought that up. Not only, the mental mistakes and false starts happen, which happened on a lot, but on that drive, you got 4th and goal with the one. You get the false start, so you're backed up 4th and goal from the 6, and you're going to kick the field goal. But how do you get a delay of game penalty following a penalty? It's just baffling, and it's baffling. Game management decisions like that, mental mistakes, things that keep happening. That if they happen occasionally, okay, but when it's happened consistently for 4 years, that's coaching, and that's the issue. But I digress. We'll dive back in here. Some more of the fans' thoughts here. Sandlot Love, that's where we were here. He says, I feel terrible. What really surprised me is the lack of will and the effort of that the defense played with. Offense scored 3 times in a row starting the game. I'm disappointed with the transfers. The secondary played deep, and the D line couldn't push or do anything. Reese dropping passes also. Eric Cruz here says, give him till the bye week and explore the options. Our friend Coos over at Coos' Corner says, surprisingly, I feel the same as I did last night. Neil isn't the guy. Clay here says, I was shocked at how bad our defense was. On our heels the whole game. We made 2 huge mistakes in the muff punt and roughing the passer. The offense played well, but certainly shouldn't have settled for field goals on those last few drives. I certainly agree with that one. Lou Pryor says it's time to make WVU great again. And if you guys can see the picture there, Rich Rod with a Make West Virginia Great Again hat on the sideline. That's funny. I don't know. Anyway, Michael here, Mike G from VA says WVU is better than this. On the same day, our basketball coach was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Our football coach proved yet again he is not capable of competing against even mid-level Big 12 programs. Stop the bleeding now. Fire Neil Brown, or hashtag fire Neil Brown. Anyways, and then Jack Thomas replies, fire Lions too. We'll stop there for a second, Brad. Just because it brought up something I wanted to talk about as well there with Michael's response to us there on Bob Huggins Day of all days. This happens in West Virginia, falls to Kansas. Bob Huggins getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Same day the game is being played, around the same time actually. But it made me think of I don't know if you've ever seen Wolf of Wall Street and Jonah Hill in the scene where the guy is cleaning out his fishbowl, and it's New Issue Day, and Jonah Hill goes over on the guy and throws a cigarette at him and goes off. He's like, "A new issue day," and that's just kind of how I felt yesterday. I wanted to treat Neil Brown like the guy cleaning out the fishbowl and just be like, "On Bob Huggins Day, you lose to Kansas on Bob Huggins Day."
Bob Huggins Day. Yeah,
yeah, literally, man. I don't know. It's just, gosh, it couldn't have happened at a worse time for Neil Brown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, pushing on through a few more responses here. Getting to a question or two here in a second, Brad. We can chime in on those. Russell Sandy says other teams are getting better. We are not. Generation X, we had 39 seconds with 2 timeouts before the half. We take a knee. Head coach Neil Brown isn't playing to win. We could have gotten 3 points. Teams get complacent with the lead. Our fans didn't fill the stadium. Half of them left 11 minutes into the fourth. Too much shotgun for short yardage. No big package. Malik Wilkerson says, terrified of taking risks. Shaking my head in reference to Neil Brown. Kevin Gordon says, fire Neil Brown. That's it. Since 2018, have we gotten any better? Not in my opinion. 4 years and almost $15 million. We're in the same place that we were. Also, if you can't afford to fire him, then you take a look at the firing of the athletic director as well for giving him that ridiculous extension. Adam Morgan says, I want to discuss the buyout and WWE's realistic options are, which is where we get into our first couple questions here. Brad says, number one, can WWE negotiate it down? Number two, are their donors willing to cover it? Number three, Lyons created this mess. Shouldn't he go too? What are your thoughts there on any of those questions there, Brad?
Yeah, so number one, I don't think we're going to be able to negotiate down the buyout. I just don't. I have not really heard of that before. I don't know who would ever agree to take less money to be fired. Don't think that's happening. Do you?
Yeah, it's unlikely. I wouldn't see that, something like that happen. And I think best case scenario for something like that is you just got to hope that maybe Neil pulls a Dana and goes, back, decides to, sees the writing on the wall and decides to leave on his own. And, then he'll owe you a little bit of money, or maybe you guys can just work it out, call it even break if it's what you both want, kind of similar to what, West Virginia worked out with Dana. But as far as talking the buyout down, I don't think so. I mean, it's there for a reason, but the extension that people are talking bad about, which I understand, maybe it came too early now in hindsight, but I think also with that, I don't think that Shane Lyons makes that extension without there being some backdoor, some loophole that they could sneak out of that buyouts one way or another. There's got to be something, I would think. They're going to build into that extension to help themselves out, I would think. So maybe, but I don't know. But what do you think about Shane Lyons? I mean, this was his hire. Should he share in some of this blame?
I like Shane Lyons. I'll be the first to admit it. I think he's done really good with all the other athletics going on at WVU. We've had a fun baseball team. They're not having a great year this year, but they were really good with Alex Manoa, and then, looked really exciting. Of course, you've had Bob Huggins lock down the basketball team since before Shane Lyons. He brought in a stellar hire for the women's basketball coach. I know she hasn't coached her first game yet, but she also seems super exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold it against Shane Lyons. I don't. You can say that the extension was early and unearned, but you have a coach who in his second year is going and winning a bowl game, and is recruiting up an absolute storm and is trying to develop a cultured program. And so I don't think that Shane, I think he, maybe we'll catch some flack for this, but I don't think that he should go. I don't think Shane Lyons is going to get fired. Especially right now with how tumultuous everything is. Losing a head coach is troublesome, but going into conference realignment and, brand deals coming up and stuff like that, it's just, we are already going to struggle enough losing a head coach, let alone trying to reform our athletic department right now where,
Yeah, I would back you up on that. I think, yes, Shane Lyons made this hire, but like I said, look around at anyone you talk to, and they thought this was a home run hire, and the best guy left available when West Virginia made the hire. So I don't think you can put that on Shane Lyons for going out and getting what was believed to be the best guy available. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's no such thing as a foolproof hire, unfortunately. And, we thought this was the closest one could be. And we see, it's not turning out that way. But I think you got to look beyond football. Like Bradley said, Shane Lyons, of course, the athletic department for all, athletic director, for all the sports at West Virginia, and has made some good hires there. Bradley mentioned the women's basketball coach. I think she's going to do good things. The soccer coach, the men's soccer program is at a level it hasn't been before. You could continue to go on down that line, I'm sure, if you would like. And of course, Bradley said, just a tumultuous time in the sport, especially in college football, conference realignment, the like, and having to deal with a coaching search. You kind of do want someone with experience with that. And, Shane Lyons will hopefully maybe learn from this and knock it out the park with the next one if it does indeed come to that. But I understand feeling like he should have a little heat too. I get it, but I don't think that he's going to lose his job or go anywhere. I'd be surprised at that. But moving forward here, a little bit more of the fan opinion, a few more here before we get ready to wrap this thing up before too much longer here on season 5, episode 133 of the CRW pod. B here, B Buyer 182 says, still the same. Brown is a nice guy, not a football guy. Done trusting the climb. You don't lose to Kansas at home and think you're headed in the right direction. And then Nathan here says, Brown needs to be fired. Last night officially killed the last bit of trust I had in the climb. No excuses. He has to go. Opinion in this one, and where they're kind of at following the upsetting, unexpected, heartbreaking, program crushing, career hurting, I guess you could say, for Neil Brown. I remember in the overtime, watching or listening to the last little bit there, and just thinking, Neil Brown's job is on the line here. Not only is this, the game on the line, but Neil Brown's job could potentially be on the line. And of course, it worked out the way that it did. And I think everyone's kind of feeling like the writing is on the wall moving forward. So, Brad, we'll get into something a little bit more positive at the end. Of course, we'll wrap up with our players of the game. But I guess the ultimate question right now at this point that Mountaineer Nation probably wants to know, so we can speculate on it here, because that's the fun thing about podcasting, is we get to talk about the theories and theorize potential hypotheticals and things like that. So hypothetically, 2023, this time next year, give or take a week or two, we're heading into the 2023 season. Is Neil Brown the head coach of the West Virginia Mountaineers?
No. I don't think he is. Unfortunately, I do think that he'll make it to the end of the season. I think that, with the buyout being as high as it is, it's going to drop down to $15 million, which I think is going to be a lot more manageable than you could possibly negotiate it down to $10 million, just, some way, but it would take a miracle for Neil Brown to really get people back on his side. And like I said, you're at the point where, if you lose the team, then this could be a really, really, really bad season. I mean, you're looking at maybe going 2-10, 3-9 realistically. And, I laughed at a certain media star who said that West Virginia is going to go 3-9, and still not a fan of him, whether he's right or wrong. I can still care less about the guy, but I thought it was sheer lunacy to say that. Yeah. And now it's like realistically, like, could happen.
And I thought the same with Vegas's over under, win total. I think it's 5 or 5.5, and I was like, oh, that's easy money, and took that. And now I'm going to be sweating the rest of the season to see if I hit that. But I don't know. We were wrong, I guess.
And it's one of those things where, like, going forward, it's like, what do you want to see from Neil Brown? Like, what? Obviously, he's not going to be able to win you over or, convince me that, unless he goes on a tear and just starts beating everybody, he's not going to be able to convince me that he's going to be the guy. But at this moment, like, for example, if we go out against Towson on Saturday and we play Rashad Ajayi and Wesley McCormick, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be upset because, they didn't look great in 2 games now. You've got 2 young guys that are hungry, that were elite talent coming out of high school. No offense to Rashad and Wesley, but, they went to FCS for a reason out of high school. And you got Jacoby Spells, who's the best recruit in our whole entire class last year, that's probably itching to get out there and play. And Mumu bin Wahad, who has been so exciting, and Mountaineer fans have been so excited for him. And why you might as well put it on the line now. I mean, you could say the answer is like if Neil Brown does that, then he's even more scared, and like that's not what you want to see because like that's what we're upset about is the fact that he's played and coached scared the whole time. It's like he's been afraid of losing his job since the day he got here, and I think that's cost him his job. And so,
ironically,
kept Jared Dagey, did never make a change, never even tried to like explore other options. And if he turns around and does the same thing and doesn't let some of the amazing top end recruits that we've gotten here because of him, doesn't even get them a shot, then they're going to leave. And we're absolutely not going to be able to see them ever because, they see what's in front of them and they know that they could probably do better even if they're rougher around the edges. Why would they stay? And so like that's one of those things. If he comes out and continues to play scared and acts like keeping Weston McCormick in and Ajayi in, and I don't mean to harp on those guys. It's just, the most blatant. Put Trey Lathan in a linebacker. Guy was an absolute stud recruit. Let him. I know he's fresh. I know he's young. Give him a shot, man. What you got going right now is not. What you got going right now is not working. And so, like, by continuing not to act, it's only going to make me more mad because you can't play scared because, like, this team's not going to – that defense is not going to win you games and it's not going to save your job. And so you might as well try something different. If they lose, then they were going to lose anyway.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I think next year, Neil Brown. At this point, it seems hard to believe that going into 2023, he would be the West Virginia football coach. To me, I think, save for maybe winning out or losing 1 to 2 more games at most, he would have to do something, like that, I think, in order to keep his job. At this point, just kind of the way that it feels, because looking at it, like you said, people are already upset, but people are upset to the point that if this continues and it's the same stuff, even maybe not so much next week because it's Towson, you're playing an FCS team, it's probably going to look a little better, but against Virginia Tech, against Texas, if it looks the same, then you're dealing with a half-empty stadium for the rest of the season because people aren't going to come. People are, it's –
You'll be lucky if it's half full. You'll be lucky.
So I mean, that's, something that the athletic department has to look at as this goes along as well, is do we go ahead and cut this off, mid-season so we can get an early jump on the coaching search so then the fans aren't a little bit more bought in. We can sell more tickets to these games. There's a lot of little tiny nuances that go into it. I think as we progress throughout the season, it's going to be interesting to see in which direction things head. But seems like we're definitely at the crossroads right now, the fork in the road, if you will. Neil Brown's going to have to win immediately and at a rapid rate to keep his job, or we're going to start hearing, rumblings throughout the season and see what happens, and we may be in the midst of a coaching search. But either way, we'll be here to chronicle it all throughout the season here at the Country Roads Webcast. Plenty of podcast episodes going throughout the year, Q&A live streams on the YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast that you're hearing now. If you're listening on the audio side, you can listen to it on any podcast platform. If you're hearing it on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. That helps. If you're watching it on YouTube, you're probably checking it out on the Country Roads Webcast channel or on the WV Sports Now channel, as we are the official fan podcast there on the WVSportsNow.com site, part of the Sports Now Podcast Network, and appreciative of those guys. But whatever channel you're watching it on, whether it's the WV Sports Now channel or our own on YouTube, hitting the like button really helps a lot. It'll help this video's performance and help future videos' performances as well. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on either channel. Helps us, helps you, helps get more of this Mountaineer football content out to Mountaineer Nation. That being said, we'll get ready to get out of here before too much longer. I believe we've ranted and raved about Kansas, all that there is to say.
I got one more thing that I want to talk about. And
go ahead.
That's JT Daniels' interview, right? His post-game interview, which is just like you could tell that he was visibly upset during the game when we jumped off sides on that 4th and 1 after he just ran the ball for the first time in a blue and gold jersey, almost gets the touchdown, it lines up, gets his team ready, and they jump off sides, and he just put his hands in his face, put his face in his hands. And, you hear him in the post game and he's frustrated. You know that he's been promised all these things. Honestly, he got the Neil Brown treatment. He was told, you coming in here, you're going to make us a 10-win team, and it's not been guaranteed. And so, like, I know, towards the end of that, JT Daniels said, we can't keep making dumb shit or keep doing dumb shit or something.
Too much dumb shit.
Too much dumb shit. Yeah. And Neil Brown is not happy about that. There's no way hearing your starting quarterback come out and say that, and just like you can feel the anger behind it. At least I can. That's how I interpret it. It's just we're doing too much dumb shit, and it's like, why are we doing too much dumb shit? And it's because we're not properly coached, right? And like that has to be the prevailing thought and feeling behind it. And so, like, are we going to, like, when I'm talking about losing the team, are we going to start seeing a fracture there now? Where you got your quarterback who's a 5-star that's been promised all this stuff that's coming in and has looked great. He has held up his end of the deal, and everybody else around him has not. And so, does JT Daniels finish the season in a blue and gold jersey? Does he stick in it just hoping that he can show off with Bryce Ford Wheaton and, maybe get those two guys to the NFL and just, say F it to the rest of it? I don't know, but I would like to know what you think.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but, my one prevailing thing on it that I can and will say, and I believe, I said it before, I can't remember if it was, on mic or off mic talking to you, but JT Daniels deserves better than this. He does, especially the way that he's fought, in 2 games since coming here, how great he's looked. And, he deserves better. The players that are playing their butts off deserve better. The fans certainly deserve better. Mountaineer Nation just in general deserves better. So than what we've been getting for 4 years. And I think, trying to flip it over and look at one positive side of it is the one thing that, I've said and I'll probably continue to say is Neil Brown's done everything right except win football games. And yes, ultimately that's all that matters. But I say that to say this, if we do end up with, going on a coaching search, the one good thing to look at is our program is in a heck of a lot better state this time than it was, in 2019 when Neil Brown took over, and whoever will take over from him will take over a program in a much better state. So while we may still have, a year or two off, it's not going to be the 3 to 5 year rebuild that we had to endure with Neil Brown, I don't believe. So that's the one good thing about it is that, Neil Brown has done a good job recruiting and things like that. So,
but it's also the scary part
should be able to, somebody should be able to pick it up and run with it, I think.
But I mean, you would hope, but like in today's world, like there's nothing that's going to stop these recruits from bouncing unless, the new coach can come in and truly win over everybody and get Nico Markiel to stay. I mean, really, if we're being honest, it's going to come down to if Nico stays, because that guy is supposed to be the future of our program. Mountaineer Nation loves him. He wants to be the guy. I think he likes WVU, and not just because of Neil Brown. But, if a new coach comes in and we don't get to keep Nico, then where do we go? Like, do we get lucky and hope that Goose and Garrett Green stay? Well, that's not guaranteed. Those guys might not even make it to the end of the year as well. And so, I think that I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point in time, but I've been trying to think about if we're going to replace Neil Brown, what do we go with? And in my heart, I want to say Graham Harrell. I really do. I want to say that, I think if Graham Harrell stays, I think that maybe we could sucker JT into staying for another year. We will definitely keep Nico. I don't think he would go anywhere because Graham Harrell's a proven great quarterback coach. But I think that you're going to lose Jordan Leslie off the jump. I think that guy would be upset. He's been here. He's proven himself year after year. He has a bad defense this year. He lost a lot of talent. We knew it was going to be a rough spot for him. But, he's gone. And so, you're probably losing a big portion of your staff. And, you're really disrespecting kind of like the coaches that have been there, gone through it. But also those are the same coaches that came in with Neil Brown. And so, I don't know. It's a scary thought. It's exciting. But, boy, it's a position I wish I was not in.
Yeah, it's definitely not where you wanted to be after, all this time. But I definitely think, Graham Harrell would potentially be a candidate, and we'll certainly get into more of that as this thing progresses throughout, whether it be talking about candidates or tracking it as the situation progresses as far as Shane Lyons, if he comes out with any statements, if anything happens, as the season moves on. We'll be here to chronicle it along the way, but I guess we'll try and put a bow on Kansas. I'm sure that you guys are tired of hearing about it. I think that we're all kind of talked out about it, but as far as, the coaching search, the future of the head coaching position for the West Virginia football team, there will be plenty of news on that unfolds in the days and weeks to come throughout this season, and we'll be here to talk about it all in the Country Roads webcast. And so really appreciate you joining us and our first, little dive into that, as well as, our Kansas review and reactions here on season 5, episode 133. Be on the lookout for our Towson preview and predictions episode dropping near the middle of this week, and of course the Q&A stream sometime on YouTube this week as well. Be on the lookout on our social media pages for announcements on those. If you're watching the video side, you see it there on the screen, but if you listen on the audio side, we'll give it to you. Twitter at WVU Country Roads, Facebook and Instagram, just Country Roads Webcast. We're going to get ready to get out of here. Before we do, I know this is a loss and not the best circumstances, but let's try in on something positive. Let's point out a couple positives with players of the game. Player of the game on offense, player of the game on defense. Where would you go, Bradley, for this Kansas game?
Yeah, player of the game on offense. I'm going to go with Bryce Ford-Wheaton. I think that he is on record to have an iconic year. He could go down as one of the best wide receivers in Mountaineer history with the kind of year that he's having. It's a beautiful thing to see. The guy's absolutely changed his body, changed his game. He's playing next level football right now, and it's so exciting to watch. On defense, absolutely none of them. 0. I don't know. They all get a -5 from me. It's just Sean Martin. I lied. Sean Martin. That's who I'm giving it to.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he had a sack. I think he had a couple tackles for loss. As somebody that's really coming into their own this year and has looked good, Sean Martin, he's the only person that showed up to play on the defense.
I'll echo you there on defense because I was kind of thinking the same way as you. I was just going to be like, defense, no one deserves it. But Sean Martin had a quietly nice game, and I liked his performance and the way he's developing. So, yeah, sure, we'll give it to him on D. Offense, I think there's only really 2 choices, probably JT Daniels, Bryce Ford-Wheaton. You took Bryce Ford-Wheaton, so I'll go JT Daniels. The one thing you can say that I think everyone in Mountaineer Nation can agree upon is JT is a baller, has been, from the first snap he took, and is probably going to continue to be for the rest of the season, fingers crossed. And we'll see where things go from here.
He will single-handedly win some games this season. He is that good.
He should. Yeah, he has the ability
to. He is so great. So. He's going to single-handedly win some of these shootouts.
Yeah. But, we'll see how many more wins come for West Virginia down the way. Hopefully it's more than we're thinking at this point. But either way, we'll be here to talk about it as it progresses along. But in the meantime, that is a wrap on Season 5, Episode 133, the Kansas Review and Reaction Edition. Bradley, any final thoughts and before we get up on out of here?
Trust the climb.
Oh, man.
At least we're going to laugh out of it.
That's all you can do. And the bad thing is, I just bought some of the merch like this year. So I got me a couple Trust the Climb hats. I really like it.
Yeah,
so
I still love the theme.
I hope West Virginia just adopts the slogan themselves. I know Neil Brown kind of coined that, but I like the slogan, Mountaineers climbing mountain. Like I like, it's good. It's good for the Mountaineers. But
yeah, I hope we keep
I don't know.
It's a great.
Hopefully it's not tainted with Neil Brown. But
yeah, you're gonna have a hard time getting anybody else to buy in on it though.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So
trust the summit.
I don't know. Yeah,
believe
right.
Believe in the scaling. Yeah,
something. But I don't know. It's rough right now to be a Mountaineer fan. But regardless, the one thing we all have is we do love our Mountaineers, and that's why it's such a downtime right now because we care and we want to see them win. And it's been a long time since we've experienced a victory. Even with the bowl game ending with a loss, that was 8-9 months ago. So it's been a long time since West Virginia has experienced a victory. Hopefully that changes this week. It should, with West Virginia facing an FCS opponent in Towson. So hopefully we can at least get the taste of losing out of our mouths, at least for 1 week as we continue to go through. That's kind of my final thought, as well as just to say, continue to always, support the Mountaineers. That's what we're here to do. You know, regardless of how you're feeling about the coach, hopefully, you know, cheer the team on and hopefully they can get as many wins as possible and let the chips fall where they may with the head football coach. And we'll see how that does as we progress. That being said, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz for Bradley. Until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those